It's that time again, and welcome back to the How to Life podcast. I'm Dr. Laura Jaggett, and she picked a good show to listen to today. This is episode 109. This one is in a very different direction than the last few episodes that I have produced. We're talking about your health today, particularly your gut health. And since we're just about through the holiday gorge, you may be feeling remorseful about what you've been eating, and you're ready to hit the reset button on your eating habits and your metabolism. My guest today is Karin Bangart. After a colon cancer diagnosis and recovery, Karin has taken her health into her own hands and has completely changed her diet and her life. She is now a certified integrated nutritional health coach specializing in gut health. Karin now has a mission to share her story and all that she has learned on her website and in her community, Health Yeah Life. She's here to share some information with you so that you can prevent injury and disease to your body. Karin, hello. Thank you for joining me on the How to Life podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Laura, for having me.
You're going to be part of the health series that we're talking about, and you have a very, very important story to share with everybody. Before we get into the details of that, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, sure. My name is Karin Bangart, and I am a certified integrative nutritional health coach, and I'm also a gut health advisor. And the reason I'm in this is because I was diagnosed with cancer, colon cancer specifically, in January of 2020.
That's a scary diagnosis, and it seems that it's high profile these days. There are a lot of celebrities and well-known people that are coming out about this. It's not so uncommon. Is that true?
That's very true. And thankfully, we have more recognition and more advocacy. People are speaking out about it. It's not quite as taboo since it is your colon. I mean, it gets a little graphic, but people are starting to share more. And I'm so thankful for that. And I think others are too.
Well, Karin, looking at you right now, you would not be someone that I would expect, hey, that person had a colon cancer diagnosis a couple of years ago, and you were what you considered a relatively healthy person your whole life. Is that true?
I thought I was. Now looking back, I can name some things that obviously contributed to my diagnosis. Sure.
How old are you right now?
I'm 53. So when I was diagnosed with colon cancer, I was 51.
That is young. And I know when you're young, you're 17, 20, that seems like it's a long time away, but it is not. So tell me about what your idea of health was prior to your diagnosis.
You know, I probably was like most of the standard Americans. I thought I could eat whatever I chose as long as I wasn't overweight. And I always talk about that. I've never been overweight my whole life. Probably the biggest I got was before my diagnosis, and it was probably 8 pounds more than I weigh now. So I was never an overweight person. I was always thin. What did I consider being healthy back then? I don't think I knew, Laura. I don't think I understood what being healthy meant. I think a lot of people tend to look on the outside and think, well, they look fine. And we all know those people, right, that can eat ungodly amounts or garbage food and they look fine. They look healthy. Yeah. And I did all the things. I've always exercised pretty much my whole life, but I didn't know what healthy was. And I think with the standard American diet, so many people eat that we don't understand that what you're consuming is you. That is your cells. It's making up your body, whether it's good or bad.
Right. Now, the body can process a lot of junk, a lot of disease, but you got to give it half a chance, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you mentioned you didn't look like an unhealthy person. How did you feel?
Feeling was different. And again, hindsight, right? I can go back 30 years at least and had gut issues back then and colon issues specifically. And I had a colonoscopy and I believe I was about 25. Now, granted, that was a lot different back then than what they do now. Was it good enough. I suppose they didn't find anything. And I honestly think that was part of my issue, if you will, from not having another colonoscopy. And I just always thought this was my body. It's just a little messed up.
A lot of people don't realize what it feels like to feel good. They just get used to feeling kind of yucky or bloated or sad. That's not the natural state of our body. But a lot of people don't know that until they start feeling well because they had to take action. Then they look back on their life and they think, I have just felt terribly most of my life. I want to ask you something. You said you had a colonoscopy at age 25.
Yes.
Age 25 is pretty young to have a colonoscopy. Was this because you were having gut troubles and you were looking for a reason of why you felt so yucky?
Yeah. Even back then I had gut issues and a lot of dysbiosis. So the doctor and I discussed it and he said, we're going to just go check. And again, I'm thankful that he did it then, but I also think by having that, I just assumed my body was just the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as prior issues, I had always had bleeding.
In your stool, like bleeding in your stool?
Yeah. And I can actually remember a time where, because I was a soda drinker back when I was young and I would drink and it would just tear my stomach up, Laura. Well, then I would actually bleed. So now, looking back, I know that our gut is our main source. And if your gut's happy, your brain's happy.
You mentioned a term earlier. I would just like you to define it for the audience. Dysbiosis.
Well, dysbiosis can mean lots of things, but it basically means you're in turmoil. Your body's just having issues.
So you went to the doctor looking for a reason why you were upset. Was diet ever mentioned?
Never before or after my diagnosis of cancer.
They never.
Never.
Wow. That, I don't know. That is completely foreign to me. And I think now you on the other side of it, it's foreign to you also. What were some of the suggestions when you were younger to try to make you feel better? Medication?
No, I didn't have any suggestions. They didn't find anything, Laura. So I was sent on my way. And sadly, I lived a lot in silence. I suffered in silence.
Right.
I didn't share. But again, your colon, you're discussing poop, you're discussing bathroom habits. You don't discuss that, and I really honestly never shared with even my husband until he turned 50. He decided to get healthier and he lost 30 pounds. And I was always thin, so we didn't worry about me, but I didn't eat well, Laura,
Yeah. You were not overweight. So it's not the amount that you were eating. It wasn't the quantity. It was the quality of what you were eating. So I would like you to kind of tell everybody, what was it exactly that you were eating? What kind of foods did you eat growing up? And what did you eat in your adult life?
Okay. Well, back then it was both my parents worked. So it was a lot of convenience, although it wasn't like it is now. We didn't do a lot of fast foods. It was very rarely that we ate out, but it was a lot of processed food because processed food was really big. You think the 70s going into the 80s, waves came out and we made a lot of our meals at home. So we were kids making our meals. Well, let your kids make their meals. What are they going to choose?
The easiest stuff.
The easiest. So you went like pot pies. And I don't know, because I don't know the ingredients from back then, if they were the same as or as bad as they are now, because the processed foods are horrific. If you look at ingredients.
No vegetables.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm sure thinking back then, it was probably open a can if we had it with a meal.
People smarter than our parents, people smarter than us were saying this was okay. You just trust what the experts tell you.
And back then margarine came out. You talk about experts and they were telling everybody to watch out for their cholesterol. So you were turning from butter to margarine. You're talking highly, highly processed with, these
plastic,
seed and
it's
oil and plastic. Yeah. And that was what was marketed to us, Laura. So that's what we ate.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of marketing component to that as well. As I remember when oat bran was a trend and anything that had a little bit of oat in it, they'd say it's good for your heart. There is always something like that in any period of time in any era.
How about the low fat diet in the 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Everything went low fat and everybody was low fat. Well, in turn, they were getting fatter because they weren't just taking out the fat, Laura, they were adding tons of sugar. And now we have another epidemic where you've got people who have got diabetes and they're getting it younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of diseases out there that are manifesting at an earlier age.
So what kind of symptoms were you experiencing so that if anybody is listening to this and they hear something, they can maybe get it looked into?
Okay. When I talked about gut dysbiosis, my gut being out of whack, basically I had bloating. I would actually have severe pain and spasms in my colon. I would go to the bathroom or think I had to go to the bathroom. I would go, but I wouldn't have anything. Sometimes I would have mucus or sometimes even blood, but it was just a spasming of my colon. Mm-hmm. And now I know what my body does and doesn't like and why. And I make sure that I don't do that. So if you ever have any kind of issues where you have colon issues, bathroom issues, you're not going, you're overly going, diarrhea. Right. So I had all these things. What led up to actually finding out I had colon cancer was getting a colonoscopy, obviously. And I finally told my husband in November of 2019, I said, I'm going to go to our GP, general practitioner. I'm going to go in and tell him what's going on. And he's going to suggest a colonoscopy. And I know that's what I need. Now, did I think I had cancer? Absolutely not. I had used Dr. Google and looked up all my symptoms over and over and over. And it would say things like colitis or Crohn's or autoimmune diseases of some sort. Or honestly, it would always say, or cancer, so as I was looking up these things, it would say that, but it never entered my mind that I had cancer.
Because you thought, I'm a healthy person. I just have this one little issue here. Everything else seems to be working all right. But you knew intuitively that you needed to have this study so that you could see what was going on.
Yes. Yes. I thought, okay, I'll find out if I have an autoimmune disease. And even the nurses told me that as I was prepping for my colonoscopy in the hospital. They said, yeah, they'll be able to tell you. They can see in there, they can see if you have colitis or Crohn's or diverticulitis. And I thought, great, this is great. Then they can fix me. I can be done with this.
Did you have the mentality that they can fix me? Did you also want to participate in your own health? Because I know from my own practice, there are a lot of people that will say, fix me, and they don't take any responsibility on their own part. What did you think? What did you do?
I think it goes back to understanding how our system works. They call it healthcare, but it's actually sick care. They treat your symptoms, but they don't figure out what your symptoms are from. And I understand it now more than I did 2 or 3 years ago, because I do know that doctors mean well. They want to help people. That's what they do, but they aren't taught things like nutrition. Even my GI doctor, after I had my colon resection surgery, he and I talked and I said something about different foods and stuff. And, he never put that together. Well, how can you not put that together, Laura? Everything that goes into your mouth, you're a tube. So you're from your mouth to your anus is a tube. That is your food. That's what's going through that tube. How can it not affect something that they're working on in your GI tract? How would they not correlate those and put those together?
Yeah, it just goes to show that there needs to be education in this area on all parts, even the marketing,
absolutely,
the production companies, the medical establishment. Everything is just one part of the whole. So let's talk about the diagnosis.
Okay.
What were your thoughts when that came back?
Well, although I was shocked, I was never afraid, but I'll kind of give the audience a little bit of a story on how it was that it came about that I had cancer. So I go in, I do my colonoscopy, and I wake up and the GI doctor is over me and he says, you have cancer. And that's how I found out I had cancer. And I was not even very coherent. And my poor husband, Laura, he's standing next to the bed and his mouth is wide open. And I said, this is not my demise. And I always believe that. And I do believe mindset has a lot to do with healing and a lot with our health. And maybe a little rebel in me too. But I was just like, no, this is not going to take me. I had colon resection surgery within 28 days.
So tell us what colon resection means.
Okay. So basically I had colon cancer in my sigmoid colon. So that's in your large intestine. And it actually is on your left side, and it's right before your rectum.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually concerned if it was in my rectum that they would not be able to do the resection surgery, as you're not able to. So they went in and took over almost a foot of my colon out, my large intestine.
Gosh.
Yeah. But they did do my surgery robotically, which was amazing. I was only in the hospital 2 days after having nearly a foot of my colon taken out. So I have very minimal scars from that. It's just amazing. So they basically can do this because people think if you have colon cancer, you're going to have to wear a colostomy bag. Now, if I had had it in my rectum, that is what would have happened because they cannot resect your rectum.
Right.
But thankfully, it was just a little bit higher up, just enough. So being in the sigmoid colon, they resected it, put it back together, just like you would a hose. If you can imagine taking a hose and splicing it back together, that's what they did with my inside. They spliced me together.
So what was the game plan afterwards? The surgeon did his job. And then was he done?
Done.
He was done. Now it was up to you. And
Correct.
You decided to not just accept that, you were going to make some other significant changes.
Exactly. And I'll back up a little bit. They did take 17 lymph nodes. They did have to make sure the cancer hadn't spread. So I didn't share that. I didn't have to have chemo or radiation, which I was very thankful for because the cancer had not spread. Although it was 1 millimeter of coming out of my colon. Colon cancer spreads through your colon and then it infects your lymph nodes and then it'll go into your other organs. And that's how cancer spreads. So my next steps were seeing an oncologist. An oncologist is somebody who deals with people who have cancer if you're doing chemo or radiation. Well, in my case, I went in every 3 months, blood work, T scans.
So they were monitoring.
So they monitored. And they still do. And going back to in the story, the doctor told me he was happy I was thin because it made the surgery a lot easier. They don't see a lot of people like me that get sick. And again, I can tell you when I asked the oncologist, how did I get cancer? Because I had no idea. How did I get cancer?
Right.
Again, thinking I was a healthy adult and had done mostly the right things. How did I get cancer? And he came back to me and said I was lucky.
That's a very odd answer.
Yes.
That's the same thing as I don't know.
And that would have been probably better, Laura, had he said, there's so many factors. But again, it just shows you that those in the healthcare, they don't know either. It's unfortunate that they don't realize, hey, this could be lifestyle. Let's look at your lifestyle. No one ever asked me about my lifestyle. They looked at my body. They looked at how I looked and assumed you're thin, you exercise, you say you eat healthy, and we think you do because you're thin. So
based on your experience with your gut your whole life, you started putting the pieces together. So what steps did you take to heal yourself?
Well, then after that, they had me on mellow foods because you just had your colon resected. You have to be nice.
Meaning soft food.
Mellow, soft foods, not fibrous food. So they didn't want you eating a lot of vegetables because those are actually little scrubbing bubbles for your colon. They actually do good things for us. And so in turn, I was eating a lot of things I hadn't eaten. So I was eating things like toast and crackers and, just really, like you said, soft foods, but mellow foods. And I started getting other issues. And that's what led me into being a nutritional health coach. I went gluten-free because I actually started having issues with gluten because I was eating so much gluten.
You started eating that and that just flared up all your symptoms from the past.
Yes.
Was that a light bulb moment for you?
Yes. And my daughter is the one who actually suggested it. My oldest daughter eats gluten-free. And she said, Mom, have you thought about eating a gluten-free diet? And that's when I decided to become a nutritional health coach. We were in the middle of COVID. I had some time. I went in and took my classes. I learned so much and was so thankful that I could do this at that time. Then I became an advanced gut health advisor. And I thought it was meant for me to help others, tell my story, share with others, people with how they can eat, what they can do. And it's not just our food.
Food is a large contributing factor. We consume it every day. It's a part of our lives. How did your body start feeling when you did start making deliberate changes with your diet?
Oh, so much better. I didn't have that heavy feeling.
Other than the bloating, which you noticed a great improvement, were other areas of your life affected, like perhaps sleep or the condition of your skin, the look of it and feel of your skin, things like that?
Absolutely. So one of the things I look back in pictures, I had dark circles under my eyes. Could it have been from gluten? Could it have been just gut dysbiosis? We won't know for sure. It
It's
could have
from
been a
diet.
combination. Yeah, it's from diet.
From diet.
It's from diet, and skin is a big one for people to be looking at, because if you're having skin issues, there's something going on inside. It is a symptom of what's bigger. So you need to find out, not just put a cream on your skin. You need to find out what's causing those issues.
Many people think that a skin issue, any type of skin issue, is at the skin level, but it's not. It is just an outward expression of what's happening internally. I think that's becoming more and more common knowledge these days, even in the medical community.
Yeah. But again, they want to treat your symptoms. They do want to treat it
They
topically.
do. And by the way, treating your symptoms are fine. Like when you're ill, you want to treat the symptoms to give yourself comfort, but you can't think that the symptoms were just some sort of random thing that appeared. There was something going on at a deeper level. It's always a good idea to look further and investigate that as well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the narrative of diet in this country? How our government and the powers that be present diet to children and young mothers and the school district and even the medical profession?
Well, we could talk for hours about this, but sadly, there needs to be more education, Laura. People need to be educated on what these foods are doing and why. Yeah. Again, if you look at the amount of children that are coming up sick, overweight, diabetic, skin issues. I mean, you can go on and on with what the kids are experiencing now, and you have to look at diet. The one thing that I like doing, I do have a community, and in my community, I always tell everyone, the biggest thing when you are looking at your food is to look at your ingredient label. And if more people would do that, and if we could get that across to people that they need to do that, because people think if it's in the store, it's good for them to buy for the most part.
It passed inspection, so it's going to be good for us.
And that is not true. Right. That is not true.
What are some of the worst ingredients that you want to avoid when you're looking at ingredients on packages?
A lot of them are seed oils, processed seed oils, highly, highly processed seed oils. So if you ever see canola oil, and I know there's been things said that canola oil is healthy. It is not healthy. Corn oil, sunflower oil, and sadly, a lot of processed food. So, let's go back. People don't know what a processed food is. You need to know that the processed food was created sometimes in a lab, because some of those things that are listed as ingredients are not food. So they put them in there for preservatives, makes the shelf life longer. Now think of it. If they're making it live longer on the shelf, it's dead food. So when you're putting that in your body, what is that doing nutrition wise? Nothing. Yes. We do need to be getting more education on that side. And I think it's really hard because, again, people want inexpensive, Laura. They want quick. So when you put those things together, they're not always the best thing for your health or your family's health.
Are there particular foods that people seem to be sensitive to these days? I know gluten. Everybody hears of gluten. People hear of dairy allergies as well. What are some of the others?
It depends on your body. Right. Not one of us are created the same. So it may be something I share with somebody they can relate to, but their body would react differently. Again, you just discussed it. Gluten is a huge, huge factor. Dairy is another one. And partly it's because of the things that are in those foods.
Right. The way they're produced. Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not so much that they inherently are bad, but they've been so processed that they have become denatured, dead, so to speak. And that just does not work well with our bodies.
Yes.
So how do you help others now? What do you talk about in your community? And what do you offer people who come to your site?
Any and everything health. I love it all. I do discuss a lot about ingredients, looking at your ingredient labels. If you walk into a store, think of shopping on the outsides. If you're going up and down the aisles, those are your dead foods. Those are your processed foods. Typically, when you walk in a grocery store, where are you at? You're in the fruits and vegetables. So if you can hang out there, that's great. You don't have to look at the ingredient label there. So I love sharing all that stuff with my members.
What can you recommend to somebody who may want to start changing the way they eat? Where should they begin?
Okay, I just mentioned it. Always look at your ingredient labels. But I also want people to not get overwhelmed. Just take it slow. Give yourself grace. It's okay to do one thing at a time. You don't have to stop everything you're eating and only eat fruits and vegetables. You can give yourself grace. Start eliminating some stuff. And it can be one thing at a time over months if that's how it works for you.
Yeah. If elimination is too hard, I would also suggest start substituting. Like if you drink juice or soda, that's your go-to drink. Drink a cup of water and then have whatever you want to drink just to kind of neutralize it, and just add in more and more rather than pull it away right away. It may just naturally sort of fall off your radar. It's a gentler way to go about it.
And that was the next thing I was going to suggest is substitution. If you don't like water, add some lime or some lemon to it. If you really need a sweet, add a little honey. If it's just substituting that one soda out of the day when you drink 3, and then just progress, more and more and more. And you don't have to do it all at once, because I know that can be overwhelming. And then people feel that they have actually failed. And you don't want to feel like you're a failure, because then if you feel like you're a failure, you don't go back. And if you do screw up, say you go out, you do have a soda, don't have one the next day.
Right.
You just start again. It's not an all or nothing.
That is true. I have this analogy I like. A giant barge going down a river can't turn on a dime. It's got to take a really slow, wide turn to go back in the opposite direction. And you're right. Give yourself grace. There's no rush. And as long as you're moving forward, you're succeeding.
Yes. And I think your audience needs to remember one thing. We're not young forever. So if you're 20, if you're 30, start now. Because even though you may feel pretty okay most of the time, in 20 years, it's going to catch up to you. After a while, you can't keep adding poison to your body without it having some kind of an effect.
True. You build the foundation now when you're young. Here's another analogy I like. A giant oak tree is strong. If you hit it with an axe once, nothing is going to happen to that tree. But if you keep hitting that spot over and over and over again, eventually that tree will fall. When you get sick later in life, you can prevent it now. So please do that. Karin, how can people find you?
They can find me at pretty much all in the same place. My website is Health Yeah Life. And my motto is, let's live a life we can say health yeah to. And I'm across all social media is the same. Health Yeah Life on Facebook, Instagram. And if you want to join my community, it's healthyeahlife.info. And I do have a little something special to give your audience if they're interested. If you want my free guide to 7 secrets to good gut health, I've created a special link for your audience. And you just have to go to www.healthyeahlife.com/gut health.
Thank you so much, Karin. This was an important topic, and I hope that it helps somebody out there see the signs early or prepare so that you never see the signs. I really appreciate your time and your energy.
Thank you for having me on. And if anyone needs to get a hold of me, reach out. I can answer anyone's questions.
You are what you eat. It's very simple to pay attention to what you consume. And now that you know, you can start to pay attention and perhaps make informed choices in the future. You can find more information and all of the contact information for Karin Banghart and Health Yeah Life in the show notes at howtolife.com/109. If you found this information intriguing, you may also like episode 31, which is all about weight loss through intuitive eating. David Orozco is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and he's a certified intuitive eating counselor, and he has a lot to say about the food we eat. You may also find value in episode 13, where I talk about fat, fitness, and food with personal trainers Tim and Judy Avalos. I also have a mominar on my YouTube channel that shows you how to make a really healthy and delicious chicken soup that will help heal your gut and nourish you at the same time. So what do you think about this? I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts about this topic, and I would also love your suggestions for future adulting topics that you would like to learn about. You can contact me on my website, howtolife.com. While you're there, take a look around at all of the content that I've put out and sign up for some mom motivation. Mom motivation is a little boost when you just need a hug. I will send you a daily message of encouragement and remind you how awesome you are. Everyone needs a hug once in a while, so make sure you sign up for that. Thank you so much for listening today, and thank you for all of your support. If you're loving this show, please hit that 5-star rating button on your podcast platform before you sign off. I'll be back next time with more great information about life situations, adulting skills, and how to approach both with knowledge and grace. Adulthood is a journey and a practice, and you are constantly learning, perfecting, and fine-tuning. So don't worry, you are doing just fine. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You got this.